And it looks like I am live from the Freeport Memorial Library, Freeport, Long Island, New York. And I am joined by a person that I've known probably 5, 6 years. You can correct me. You can correct me in this conversation and tell me I offended you 15 years ago. But this is Eric Senich, who I first encountered when he was editing Van Halen News Desk, the great website that is basically the official Van Halen website due to Van Halen's inactivity. But in the last few years, Eric has launched an excellent podcast called Booked on Rock. Booked on Rock, Freeport Memorial Library. I think the tie-ins are just very natural there. So Eric, I'm going to continue to compliment you. But before I do that, how's your evening going so far?
It's great, Darren. It's great to see you, man. It's has it been 5 years? Time flies.
I'm going to say it's around the 5-year mark. I can look back at old emails or the DLR cast episodes, but the key is, how long has Booked on Rock been going for? 2 to 3?
Yeah, it's now on 3 years now. It's been 3 years, about 320 some odd episodes now.
So I just promised a minute or two ago compliments. And that's because not only do I love what you're doing, reinforcing great authors about great topics and all that, but you are the rare interviewer who actually reads the book.
Isn't that crazy? I mean, it's not so crazy because it's not like it's something I was shocked to hear, but yeah, I mean, to me, it's important. It's important for the interview. You get the better questions, you get better answers, you get a better back and forth between host and guest. And it's also really, bottom line is, the authors they've earned that right. You've written a great book on David Lee Roth, and it's a lot of work. So I can understand it. It all depends on the host. I mean, I'm not sure what their schedules are like, but I chip out time every weekend to read a couple books, sometimes 3, and get the questions set up. So it's real important for me to do that.
So that ties in with a point of curiosity for me. With when you're sometimes reading 2 or 3 books in a week because you've been really steady and consistent with your podcast, did you ever take a speed reading course?
Yeah, it is like I never took a course, but it is like speed reading, because I find myself and it doesn't start right away. Sometimes I'm trying to get into the rhythm as I read the introduction and I'm getting into it. But then a lot of times what I'll do, because of time constraints on my end, I can't read the entire book, every page, cover to cover. So what I do is I will look and I'll start to speed read and look at the opening line of a paragraph and kind of do it that way and kind of go through. Sometimes if I'm really short on time, I may have to, skip a few chapters, but I'm looking for something that's important that I can really point out and ask a question to the guest. And then from there, they can fill in the gaps. And also keep in mind too, they don't want you to reveal the whole book. So, it's not like you have to necessarily read the whole book page to, page, like I said, cover to cover. But yeah, there is a speed reading type of thing that happens with that. And my brain clicks into speed reading mode after like about 5 or 10 minutes. And now I'm like in a rhythm, and then I'm into it. And every single time I end up getting something out of it. I'm entertained by the books. I'm informed by them. I'm just so into it. Because like you, we're that rare breed of person who just loves rock and roll more so than the average person, loves music more so than the average person. We didn't want to know everything about it. And it's just like an endless desire for me. And so I continue to learn about new bands. I just read a book on My Bloody Valentine, one of the shoegazer bands. Phenomenal band. I didn't even know much, if anything, about this band. So just having that book, come to my table, if the publicist says, do you want to do a book on My Bloody Valentine? My first thought is yes, because I don't know much about them. So I want to know more about them. So it's not necessarily the bands that I know and love. I challenge myself to find out more about these bands and genres that I'm not familiar with. But yeah, My Bloody Valentine pretty well.
Love that band. The Loveless album is kind of the cornerstone. And I find that most people don't really know the Reunion album. They don't know the album that came before that. But did you ever see the Creation Records biopic?
No, I'd love to see it. Does it get into the making of it?
Sort of. It kind of sabotages or makes fun of My Bloody Valentine, because you know how that label gave the world Oasis and Teenage Fan Club?
Yep.
Basically, Oasis got Creation Records out of the hole that financially My Bloody Valentine dug them into. That's the nicest way to put it.
Yeah.
And the film doesn't make My Bloody Valentine look particularly easy to work with. But we're not talking about My Bloody Valentine. We're talking about Eric Senich. And something I'm curious about, because if I look at your last few episodes, there's one about the book about Prince, there's one about the Cars, there's the one about U2. And you could just shut this down and say no. But does Long Island come up as much in conversation for you as it does for here?
Long Island. It does not come up. Let me think now. No, it doesn't come up that often, but every now and then.
Okay, if you challenge me, if you go, what do the Cars have to do with Long Island? You go, well, Elliot Easton is from Long Island.
Is from Long Island. Okay.
Yeah,
yeah.
All these kinds of things, just about any artist, you can go, yep, so-and-so is from Long Island, or they recorded on Long Island, or one of their first gigs was on Long Island, etc. Like one of the earliest U2 gigs in North America, I believe, was Long Island at Lido Beach. Do you do that about Connecticut ever, or is it just Long Island people that talk about Long Island?
No, I think that's what it is. I'm Connecticut centric. Okay. So I'm always listening for those things. Like a lot of times you'll find stories about Connecticut. Like there's a great place called the Shabu Inn in Willimantic, Connecticut that burned down in the early 80s. But it was one of those places that bands like the Police and Aerosmith and REM and all these bands that would come through, coming from, maybe the Boston area, coming through to New York, they would stop in and play a gig there. And the Police famously played a gig there in front of like 5 people when they were not very well known. Aerosmith, famous for the first time they ever played Dream On Live, was at the Shabu Inn. And so those are the types of things that come up. And then you'll have these really bizarre small world stories. And my favorite is, you remember the band Alcatraz with Stevie Vai, initially in Yngwie Malmsteen.
You mean Long Island native Steve Vai?
That's right.
Yes.
And Alcatraz. So the bassist is Gary Shea, and Gary Shea was on Kiss podcast, Three Sides of the Coin, one of my favorite podcasts, and he was talking about being from Connecticut. This was like 7 or 8 years ago, and that piqued my interest. And I said, "Wow, I wonder which town. Maybe he's close to my hometown of Southington, Connecticut. I'm right in between Hartford and New Haven." And I looked him up, and sure enough, on his website, Southington, Connecticut. Now, even crazier than that is the fact that it turns out he literally lived like 5 minutes from where I am here, and then also lived down the street from where I grew up in Southington, Berkeley Avenue. He was right there, like down the road, and my mom still lives on that street. It was one of those small world stories. And I had written an article on him when I was in radio, and I put a blog up on him, and I think he contacted me to thank me for it. And we just kept in touch. And then I asked him to be on because he had a book out. And now we're texting each other, and he's sending me pictures of Southington from like 1950, 53, 54. That's the stuff that can happen in podcasting. You'll find, and I've watched your show many times. I'm a fan of the Paltrowcast, and you'll always ask questions like that. And sure enough, you'll be like, "Oh yeah, I know that place. I've been there," and you do a lot of traveling. So you've got a lot of things in common with people just for places that you went to around the world.
Well, the latest victim of that, I did that a couple days ago to Tony Danza because I knew he lived in my town in the 70s.
Yeah.
And I feel that kind of ties in with the library element of all this, that the average person goes, I like that song. That is entertaining. That is fun. And then you were closer to where I am, where you go, I really enjoy that. Who wrote it? Who played on it? What else did they do? I want to track this long term and figure out the other things they're associated with, because if this was good, maybe other stuff they did was great, but where did they make it, etc. And that really comes across in Booked on Rock, because these people aren't being relegated to like 5-minute Tonight Show kind of interviews.
Exactly.
Now, for you have a radio background, but how did you learn how to interview and keep things on track?
Yeah, I learned that in radio, and I actually learned that just when I was doing nights at the radio station I worked at in Fairfield County, which is right near New York. And I was doing 6 to 10 p.m. Monday through Fridays. But every now and then I'd have an artist call in and I do an interview, or they come into the studio, Shinedown the singer of Shinedown. Sorry, what's Brett?
Brent Smith, is that?
Brent, yeah, really cool dude. I still have his drop. He's like, "Hey, what the hell's going on? This is Brent from Shinedown. You're listening to Eric Senich, you know." But that was a night one. But a lot of times you get the big ones during the afternoon drive because that's when they really want to promote an upcoming show. So I got to interview Greg Allman twice. Guys from Twisted Sister, Blue Oyster Cult, things like that.
Where is Twisted Sister from, and where's Blue Oyster Cult from?
Long Island. Yep.
Long Island. And I think Dee Snider spent a little bit of his childhood here in Freeport, but that's besides the point.
That's beside the
you.
Soft white underbelly, right?
Yes.
Blue Oyster Cult used to be called that. And so I kind of got my skills through there in terms of experience, but I grew up watching my dad interviewing. My dad was in radio, and we were both journalists, sports writers. So there's an interview process there. And so he'd always teach me the tricks of the trade and how to start an interview, make them feel comfortable, what to ask, questions to ask, what not to ask, things like that. And then I used to watch him do his thing on the radio. So when it was time, when I was in radio, I was, they'd be say, "Hey, we got Greg Allman. He's going to be calling in tomorrow, just letting you know, man. So get ready." And so you just did it on the fly. And I don't know, I seem to have a knack for it. Every now and then somebody would say, "Hey, that was a great interview," so, "Oh, cool." I was the type of guy too, where when going back to Greg Allman, I remember one of my coworkers said, "Oh, dude, you got to ask about what it was like, man, to be with Cher. What was that like?" And I was like, I guess, but I kind of want to know like the story behind In Memory of Elizabeth Reed. I want to know, I want to know what Greg thinks about his brother Dwayne. Does he think about him a lot? What did he learn from Dwayne? Those are the things. I'm more like in-depth music nerd guy. Whereas some other people would be looking more for like the salacious type of stuff. Like, what was it like being in the sack with Cher, man? Like, nah, I'm not really interested,
Some of that also borders on the Chris Farley show from Saturday Night Live. Like, that was awesome. Like, and you go, okay, where's the question there? That kind of a thing. And thankfully, you generally avoid that. You bring your decades of expertise and your decades of fandom and all that. Yeah. But were you always a deep cut person? Were you always a person that liked lesser known songs?
Yeah. Funny you say that. I'm actually in between. I love the forgotten hits, like the songs that were hits at one time on the radio, and then they drop off. And so then when you listen to them again, you're like, "Oh shit, I remember that song, man. Why don't they play that anymore?" Those are really, I love those. That's my sweet spot. But I'm a fan of the hits. I'm going to tell you, Van Halen's Jump. I know the diehards will say, that's too pop. I love a great pop rock song. I mean, I love the melodies and the hooks and all that, every bit as much as the deep tracks. But it's funny. It said that in between. I like those ones that were somebody will say, "Oh man, I remember that one." It's familiar to them, but they haven't heard it in a while. Those are the cool tracks I like.
Okay, so recapping what we've talked about so far, the old radio trick of pretending like the people may have tuned in late. So you had the Van Halen news desk editor position, which is how you and I first connected. Booked on Rock launched about 3 years ago. You're reading 2-3 books a week on average. You're interviewing a lot of authors, and sometimes the author themselves were these artists that wrote a book. How are most of the interview opportunities usually coming to you?
Yeah, that's in the beginning, it was a lot of me approaching them and sending emails out to the publicist, or if it was a independent publisher, the publisher themselves, and trying to track them down. And then from there, you hope that, you get a few, and then it snowballs. So now I'm at the point where there's little of that. If I see a book that I really want to talk to an author about, I will reach out to them and, hope that happens. But I've developed such a great relationship with so many of these publishers and publicists. And so they come to me now, like I'm on their email list, or they'll reach out to me, say, "Hey, Eric, I got somebody I think you might be interested in." And the biggest of them all is our friend in common, Steve Roth from Motorbooks. Steve, I don't even recall how that all came to be, whether I whether I emailed him at first years ago or vice versa or whatever. But now it's to the point where we're in such a rhythm, Steve and I, where, he's got these books that are coming out. I'm on his email list. I see the thing come up and I just send him an email. Hey, Steve, I'm in. When do we want to do it? My usual times, when I'm available, let's do this.
Sure.
And that happens a lot with a lot of the publicists. So it makes it a lot easier. It can make it challenging because sometimes I can't keep up because I got a full-time job. And, that's
Sure.
that's why I had to step down from the Van Halen news desk. I hated to have to do that, but full-time job and then the podcast and my mom is doing great. She's going to be 86 at the end of the month. She lives down the road from me. So I want to make sure I'm there for her. She needs my help with things. And, she had a bit of a minor health scare and she's doing great. But at that point I was like, I've got to give up something because I'm just going to crack, and we had some of those conversations through emails and text, Aaron, where I'd be like, dude, I'm sorry. I can't do it. Like, I don't have the time. I can't keep up. So, yeah, that's it. But Jeff Hausman from the Van Halen news desk, that was a great opportunity for me. And he still has me listed as a contributing writer. And I have every intention of continuing to write and contribute. I really want to. But to answer your question, that's what it is. It's kind of like a snowball thing,
And you mentioned Steve Roth, my co-host on the DLR. Where is Steve Roth originally from?
Long Island.
Long Island. You see, now that I'm mentioning all these
and
Long
he
Island
went to college in Connecticut.
You're right. He did do the exchange program.
Mm-hmm.
That is inevitable. And, to
He's
your
up
defense,
freezing in Minneapolis now. He's in Minneapolis, right? Not Minnesota.
St. Paul, I think St. Louis Park.
Yeah, somewhere.
I don't want to dox him. I won't say the street he's on, but
right, we won't do that.
But you have the Van Halen flag behind you, and wasn't Live Without a Net recorded in New Haven, Connecticut?
New Haven, Connecticut, and that was not too far from where Steve went to school there. Yeah, I went to college in New Haven. Yeah, Live Without a Net. That banner you see behind me is an actual banner from the 1984 tour that a coworker of mine, her husband, had it in his attic. And gave that to me. Yeah. Yeah, pretty cool.
I guess I'll give you honorary status to Connecticut. We'll figure out everything, how it ties back to Connecticut or Long Island. I mean, Eddie Van Halen, he sought his medical treatment on Long Island towards the end of his life. And Stony Brook, the ties are out there. But let's go back to you here. So how far in advance are your episodes taped before they're posted usually?
Oh, this is crazy, Darren. This is great. Only 2, 3, 5 days. I have a nice structured routine that allows me to really fire out really put out a lot of episodes in short time. It's not a production intensive type of podcast. So what I need to have is all the essentials ready to go, plug in the audio, plug in the video. Producing the video takes longer. But so I can get them up within 2 to 3 days. And that's on average, I'm able to do that. And so I usually will schedule the interviews like 4 to 6 weeks ahead of time and try to schedule them around the time that the book is released. So
is the series done in order?
Yeah. Everything's, I mean, with the exception of a few rarities, like we had a book, Jude Sutherland had a Beatles book, or John Lennon book, and we were going to put it out chronologically as, just put it out per the norm, 2-3 days after. But then they emailed and said, can you hold off? There's issues with the printing. Can you wait 3 or 4 months? And I did that. So it's kind of funny because it sticks out. Like I'm clean shaven. All of a sudden I have a full beard and I'm like 15 pounds heavier because I lost a few pounds. So it's kind of like, oh, I think that was recorded at a different time. But other than that, it's all just, as they go.
So, as of early October 2025, not 2015, 2025, that would be the correct year we're in right now. How many episodes do you have in different states of production or planning right now? In other words, do you do like 1 or 2 at a time, or there's like 15 revolving around?
Right. No, I do 1 or 2 at a time. What I will do is I will read the books. I try to read the books at least like a week ahead. if not more. Just so if there's anything I think of that I want to add as a question, and just to keep the, I'm not good with like last minute pressure. I like to have everything ready, and reduces the anxiety just in case, because things can come up. So I have questions set up for upcoming interviews. I think I got like 3 or 4 set up for the next few weeks. But I don't have any nothing in the can. Normally I just have one interview for each individual day, but I do have a Saturday coming up where I have one like at 9 a.m. and another at 1 p.m. Because this too with your show, scheduling it's not always set in stone. Things happen. Right. You got to change, and you got to kind of adjust on the fly. And a lot of these interviews I'm scheduling like while I'm at my day job, in between, on breaks, during lunch, and I'm returning emails and all that. And just basically it's a one-man show. So I'm doing all the booking.
So something else I'm curious about, when to talk about myself, but I promise it's coming back to you. When I started taping interviews when I was 17, 18 years old, they were horrific. And unfortunately, audio tapes do exist of a lot of them, but I was scripting out all of my questions in advance. And then eventually things went to being email based. And of course, those are scripted questions. And then eventually I started to realize, okay, bullet points. Like my notes for you, instead of questions, it literally says radio, booked on rock, Long Island authors and topics. That's it. You just learn over time to just call it on the fly, actively listen, etc. And sometimes it's great, and sometimes it's terrible. I did one today where I interviewed 3 actors from the Tulsa King. It did not go great. No. Because talking to 3 actors at the same time, and you have to get it done within 8 minutes, they're just setting you up to fail.
You're on a time constraint. Yeah.
It's terrible. I mean, I'm going to put it out, but I look like a total awful interviewer from that.
Yeah, they have a daily schedule, so they're kind of like, let's go, man. Let's.
Yeah, next.
They're on to the next one. Yeah.
Yeah, it didn't go so hot. The one before that went fine. At this point, I find 80-90% of my interviews, I'm proud of them after the fact, and then 10% of them is like, oof, that was terrible. So where I'm curious about for you is, are you these days like a bullet points person, or do you actually verbatim write out most of the questions?
Yeah, I'm still OCD. I don't know what you would call it, but I write out the questions.
Wait, was that OCD a John Melendez reference for the record?
Oh, just
sorry to interrupt you. Back to you, Eric.
Stuttering John, the legend. I have the questions written now, but inevitably I end up saying them differently, or I'll delete one, or I'll add something in between, because like I say, you're listening. So you're going to follow up on a comment that they made that you didn't have the question set up for. But you'll see as you watch the video versions of the show, you'll see me. I'm looking down. I have no qualms about that. I'm not insecure about trying to make it seem like I have all these questions memorized in my head. I mean, we're talking 15 to 20 questions. So I'll have them noted down below me, and you'll see me just kind of, looking up, asking. But so it's a combination of the two. I could try bullet points, but the typing up the questions started many, many years ago when I was a disc jockey, and you had to time out your breaks, and they would say, you only got 30 seconds. And so I got the system down, because first I didn't have time to handwrite it all. So we would pull up a Word, Microsoft Word, and I type up what I want to say. And it kept my breaks tight. And it also, I should admit too, my brain is always working like it's going a million miles an hour. And it kind of it reins me in, because I sometimes I start to ramble and I don't stop. And then I kind of talk myself into a dead end. And so it keeps me structured. It's something, the way my brain works. And I like that. It's just an approach that's been working for me, so I go with it. But what you do is impressive, because you got the bullet points, but you're listening. That's the key too. You got to listen. You got to listen to what they're saying. And sometimes I'll listen back to an episode and I ask a question. I'm like, oh man, he already talked about that. You didn't hear him say that, So,
One time when I interviewed Harry Shearer as Derek Smalls in character of Spinal Tap,
cool.
he repeated a joke the second time.
Oh, cool. Wow. Harry Shears. Did you see the new movie? I loved it.
I heard it's great. Haven't seen it yet. Heard great cameos. You recommend Spinal Tap too?
Oh, you won't be disappointed. Will not be disappointed. They did a great job with it, but you have to be fearless with it. You know this, Darren. You got it, like you say, because some of them it's a home run. Some of them you're just like I just wasn't feeling I wasn't in the rhythm of it. Guests that I've had on a lot now, like Greg Prado and
where's Greg Prado from?
He's from Long Island.
From Long Island,
and now we have a nice rhythm going. I know what his sense of humor is like, and similar to mine, so we can tease each other. We just have fun. Some guests, it's off to a rocky start. I'm not sure where the rhythm is there. Sometimes, you think they're going to say something else, but they don't, and they pause, and it's like there's a little bit like, where are we going with this? And then about 2-3 minutes in, okay, now I got my rhythm. But I'm always a little cold to start, and then all of a sudden I kind of like find myself warmed up. And then I'm doing good, but it's not an easy thing. It's guest to guest, so everybody's got a different personality, a different rhythm to how they talk.
For sure. When I was mentioning before that an interview I did today, they went, "You have 8 minutes." Sometimes I get them and they go, "You have 4 minutes," or "You have 3 minutes," or "You have 1 or 2 questions." For you, what's the minimum amount of time that you would accept for an interview?
30 minutes, so, but it's really not even set in that. Like I've had certain authors who are just, they're short, quick, and concise, give great answers, but they're just quick and concise. An example would be, one that I had on recently, Sean Egan, who wrote a book on Springsteen's Born to Run. You may have seen that one pop up. And then he did a phenomenal book on Bob Dylan. He was quick, old school, doesn't like to be on camera. Steve will tell you. Steve and I, Steve's like, he doesn't want to do camera. He will only do audio. And he's like 30 minutes. Some I've had that have been like 25 minutes. I try to make sure it's at least 30. And then I don't want to go really anywhere past like an hour and a half tops. I have my goal to keep it around an hour or so is to come up with between 15 to 20 questions. Usually if I hit the like 16, 17, 18 question mark, again, OCD, something's wrong with me. I'm like nuts, but it's like 18 is the sweet spot. And if I get 18 questions, I'm like, okay, good. And that usually makes it like an hour. And a lot of these books are so friggin' good. I end up with like 30 questions and I got to pare it down. Let's delete that. Let's delete that. Let's delete that. Let's delete that. Okay. 18, ready to roll. Boom.
So the Motor Books imprint was mentioned before that our mutual friend Steve Roth handles some of the marketing and PR at. And Motor Books has really been on a roll with putting out comprehensive titles on classic artists. I'm going to say, I don't think that most of these artists had extensive books about them 10 or 15 years ago. Are we maybe in, and you could disagree with me, are we maybe in the renaissance right now for classic rock books?
I think we are. I was surprised at how many books were coming out on a regular basis. I thought I'd maybe get one or two interviews per month. They're coming out all the time. So I think we are. The question is, where do we go from here? When these bands are the ones that are still going, like we did an Iron Maiden at 50 with Daniel Buck's band. Hey, they're still going.
Their farewell tour was like 15 years ago. I think I remember Bruce Dickinson saying, we're not going to play any old songs ever again. That's what I remember from Iron Maiden.
Yeah.
Maybe if it's not an absolute farewell tour. Am I wrong about that? Or did they say farewell?
I think they did say farewell, but I'm admittedly not a diehard Iron Maiden fan. So we could be wrong, but hey, they're one of the few bands at that age that are still kicking ass. I mean, they really are solid, they're one of those rarities. But what do you think, Darren? I don't know. I don't know what the future holds for rock and roll books. I think I don't see it going anywhere. I mean, books in general, they just have outlived all of the changes, everything that's happened over the years, television and cable
Yeah.
and
I think
internet.
an indirect answer, but I'm going to give you an answer is last night my wife sent me a posting to a Facebook ad about a Long Island venue that I'd never heard of called Nostalgia Bar. And this venue had an upcoming appearance by Tim Capello. Do you know who Tim Capello is?
No.
In the movie The Lost Boys, he's the sexy sax man
Oh, okay.
who used to play with Tina Turner and all that.
Yep.
And right now he's having this career thing where he can kind of do Comic-Cons and the Mahoning Drive-In in Pennsylvania and these nostalgia things where they're just basically come in there to watch him play a 12-minute version of his one song from The Lost Boys, a couple of covers. And then I guess he hawks merchandise after that. And it's not like the crowd was going, oh man, that guy only had one hit, or what else is he going to play? The people are like, this is great. So what I'm getting at is there's an audience for everything if something was big enough at this point in time. And I think, and I was telling Steve this, they eventually at Motor Books are going to have to do all the emo and the pop punk bands. They're going to have to get those books. There's going to have to be the Fall Out Boy and Taking Back Sunday and Brand New and Panic at the Disco, because those bands sold millions of records. Those bands have played amphitheaters and arenas now on and off for decades. So I think eventually those are going to happen, even if Pearl Jam slows down and Alice in Chains and Soundgarden. But the other side of that is Jim Morrison died 55 years ago.
Sounds about right. 1971.
Hendrix,
right?
Joplin, they died like 55-ish years ago, and we're still getting new products for them.
Yeah, people are still fascinated with these artists. There's going to be a select few, I think, where it'll always be that way. I see every now and then I walk around, I see teenagers with Queen t-shirt or a Led Zeppelin t-shirt or Metallica, no Van Halen. No, we know, Darren, because they friggin' don't. I don't know. I love Alex, but I wish he would do like Brian May and Roger Taylor, man, keep that legacy alive, because this kind of lends to where I'm going with this is that, how long can these books keep coming out where there's a demand for them? Because, are there a bunch of books on Beethoven that come out all the time? I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like
that one is a no, but when you talk about t-shirts, one of the bands you see more shirts than almost any other band is the Misfits. And the Misfits at their peak originally were playing tiny DIY clubs. The Misfits, okay, maybe they'd move up to an Irving Plaza, but the Misfits were never a band that had hits or gold albums. All that happened after they broke up. And a lot of the people wearing a Misfits shirt probably don't know it's a band. Yet they regroup in 2017 after suing each other, and almost like a Larry David premise. The settlement is that they have to do gigs together, a certain number of gigs together, and make money as the sentencing. So what I'm getting at is I think that there's a lot of bands that are going to get that Sublime treatment where after the fact, the books come.
Yeah.
And
I hope so. I sure hope so. I mean, because I would love to continue on with the podcast and have these books just keep coming out and exposing these bands to new generations. Hope so. My concern is that they're going to turn into, there are kids out there who appreciate Mozart and Bach and Beethoven. Yeah, sure. But not a lot. I mean, not enough to be some kind of in demand where they want to go out and buy a book on them. So where do we go with this? 10, 20, 30, 40, 50 years from now, will people be remembering Metallica like they remember somebody from the classical era today? Like, we again, going back to all these, like, I mean, there's so many great jazz artists, but not everybody's, how many kids are like, oh, I can't wait to buy that book on Miles Davis. I mean, some, sure, diehards, but Pink Floyd is another one. I mean, that Pink Floyd may be a band that could, last many, many, many years, long beyond us. They have something about them, that name, that that image, you know, Grateful Dead, same type of thing. It represents something, a state of mind more so than the actual band itself, I think. What do you think?
I think that it all comes down to legacy management. So you mentioned
Right.
Van Halen with regard to the t-shirts, and Van Halen legitimately had 2 albums that sold over 10 million copies in the US. So they were one of the biggest bands for years. And the number of shirts you see is minimal, and the tribute thing didn't happen. And the official authorized vaults never opened up. So people bootlegged it, and the band didn't monetize off of those things. And you go, that band, their legacy is going to die out if it keeps this way. But Third Eye Blind is going to be remembered as the biggest band
Right.
of the last 30 years if things keep going the way that they're going.
It's marketing, you know, you got to keep reminding people that you're there. There's a reason why McDonald's keeps running commercials. I've had people say, why even bother? They're McDonald's, they're huge. Because you got to keep reminding people that you're there and that you're current and that you're cool and that you're, you know, of the now. There is something about that. I mean, especially, you know, when we were teenagers and, you know, kids, it's like if you saw that cool kid on the block wearing a Van Halen t-shirt, you know, it was like, what's up with that band, man? I got to know what's up. This is cool. I got to find out more about these. You know, you gotta do that if it's important enough to you as the band member, surviving band member, to keep your music alive, because I hate to say it, there are not many people, you know, I work with people that are in their 20s and 30s. They don't know who Van Halen is. I mean, that's heartbreaking to me. They just don't care.
Yeah.
They don't give a shit. You know?
Yeah, Van Halen actually checks off so many different boxes because it was a truly multicultural band.
Yeah.
And if you talk about the demographics behind it, there was the guitar and musicianship element of it on top of all the hit songs and all that. But a band that you mentioned earlier is having interviewed. I have a random prediction that one of the most talked about and remembered bands of all time, and this horrifies me, is going to be Twisted Sister.
Wow.
I think just because of the image that Twisted Sister will be thought of as the 80s rock band, that they will usurp everything just based on how distinct and jarring the image is. Am I way off, or is there something there?
No, I think there's something there. In fact, they're reuniting. Did you see that?
I saw that. I laugh at that because their farewell shows were 2016 or 2017. And how many feuds has Dee Snider gotten into where he said that band's a hypocrite? They never should have come back.
Yeah, he's had some quotes that people are bringing up that he said that now they're kind of like, well, now what, D? But yeah, I think you're right, though, because they kind of represent that over the top 80s image that's fun. And I think that, you know, we see it more and more on these TV shows like on Netflix where, you know, Stranger Things, you know, a lot of 80s music is cool again. So, you know, it's going to come back around. I hope. That'd be cool. I've seen Twisted Sister. I saw them live once. And that was the first album I think it was the first album I ever got. Not the first album I ever bought. First album I ever bought was Synchronicity, but for Christmas I got Stay Hungry because I loved the two videos. I Want to Rock and We're Not Going to Take It, you know?
So back to you and what Booked on Rock does. Is there a band that you absolutely love that hasn't had a book about them yet?
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Well, I finally got a Cars episode. I couldn't believe how long that took.
Mm-hmm.
Boy, I got to run through in my head that there hasn't been a book, you say?
Yeah, I mean, even the Replacements have gotten a book, which I believe is now being adapted into a biopic. Did you read about that?
Oh, no, I didn't.
I believe the Bob Mayer book is being adapted into a book, and Finn Wolfhard from Stranger Things is maybe playing Westerberg in it.
Oh, wow. Okay. Well,
that's another band where they didn't sell many records when they were around. They didn't get into big venues, but time is going to remember them as being this huge band that everyone talked about at that time.
Yeah. Well, this is really cool. When Warren Zane's book on Springsteen Deliver Me From Nowhere. I had him on in 2023 to talk about the book, and then I'm in the movie. I go to movies all the time. I love movies. So I'm at the theater watching movies, watching trailers, and they play the trailer, and at the end it says based on the book by Warren Zanes. I was like, holy shit. I talked to him, really nice guy, a brilliant book. So, but I would say, yeah, there are bands, but they wouldn't be like the huge bands. Like I'll tell you a band that I'm a huge fan of, The Outfield. Your Love is a brilliant pop rock song. Clearly, it stood the test of time. I mean, I heard that song being played over the speakers somewhere at I was at some store recently. There's a Kohl's or something, and there's a teenager kid. He's singing the lyrics word for word, verbatim. That says a lot about a song. But I would love to hear about a band like that who they had that short, brief moment in the sun and what that was like. Sadly, they've lost 2 of the 3 members. Trying to think of who else. It would be one of those like obscure bands that I was a big fan of that nobody really talked about. All right, throw some names out there. And who do you think? What I'm trying to think.
If it's a band that wasn't absolutely huge but was infamous, there's a long list. For example, Loudness. I'd love to see a Loudness book.
Oh wow, cool. Loudness, yeah. Like a band like Sisters of Mercy, there was a book written on. I had the author for that. But those bands like that deserve some recognition. Boy, you put me on the spot. I'm trying to think of any others now. I'm going like A through Z in my head.
Well, was there ever a book about Yngwie Malmsteen? I don't think there was.
I don't think so. I don't think so. He's Gary Shea, was talking about how difficult he was to work with. I don't know if he would ever agree to do a book with anybody. Maybe he'll write one of his own.
Well, where my mind goes with that is if he wouldn't do it, if somebody took the time to do what I did with David Lee Roth, where you go, okay, never going to get official comments. Let's just go to everyone around and merge that with the historical stuff. And maybe there's a story there. I think that Yngwie stories would be as entertaining as Axl Rose stories.
Oh, absolutely. But you checked off a box, the David Lee book. Why wasn't there ever a book about Dave? I mean, he wrote a book. I mean, there's been books like picture books, and I have one of them where it was like from the 80s or something. It was like all photos, color photos of them. Like Ross Halfin wrote it, but like a book like you did. So that's another great one.
Thank you.
You're welcome. I'm just going through the list like STUV. I'm trying to think. Not many really, man, because there's a lot of books out there. And when you go to Amazon Rock Book Releases, you can see like, holy shit, a lot of stuff. No, give me some time. Ask me some more questions. Maybe I'll think of some more, because to me, The Outfield is one. Maybe I'll be the author of that book someday.
Well, in the case of The Outfield, I think you're absolutely right that Your Love is a song that's known by multiple generations. I'm wondering how much of that has to do with TikTok, because I believe Your Love is a big meme where the intro, the Josie part, something about people fall down at that. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Oh, no, I don't, but I'm not surprised.
I've been finding out more and more because I will occasionally post unboxing videos on TikTok or concert clips. I don't really use TikTok a lot, but what I'm finding out is certain songs are TikTok hits. So, for example, Vienna by Billy Joel was a TikTok hit. Did you know that?
No, I don't think. I know there was a Billy Joel song that was taken off on TikTok. That might be the one.
Connie Francis, right before her death, she became a TikTok artist.
That's hilarious. But see, now people know the song, not the artist, right? The younger generation. So they'll hear Your Love and they're not like, oh, Outfield. They're just like, oh, I know that song.
I had a friend, his band is called Tally Hall, and they had one album on Atlantic. It did okay. It didn't sell that much. They broke up for whatever personal reasons. And then the music took off on TikTok to the point that not only was it generating revenue, but the album went platinum off of just basically TikTok streams.
Wow.
So,
hey, how about Men at Work? Has there been a book on Men at Work?
I don't think so. Do we really know the story about what happened with Men at Work?
Well, there's a sad story with the the flute player there took his life. He was sued for, you know what I'm talking about?
I know the Kookaburra, like they
Right.
got the copyright royalties, but he was the one that was affected by that. Was that Greg Ham or something?
Yeah, Greg Ham. He took his life.
I didn't know that.
He had to go to court, and he was broke financially, and I guess was kind of humiliated by it. So that was a sad story. I know Colin Hay. Maybe he's written a book. I don't know, but Men at Work would be good. You talk about a band that catapulted to the highest levels of success, and then all of a sudden they're gone.
Yeah, they're sort of thought of as a 2-hit wonder, even though there's really like 4 or 5 hits, and those hits are still played. Yet it's kind of like what happened to them between 85 and Colin Hay being on Scrubs.
Right.
And there's other people in that band. There was another 4 people or so in that band. And what do we know about them besides Down Under, Overkill, and a couple of video hits?
Yeah.
And I think that goes back to a couple of topics ago, legacy management. Is it a bad manager? Is it rights problems? What do you think it is with Men at Work?
Well, I think after I'm trying to recall what happened, what led to the downfall of the band. I think it was creative differences. I think Colin Hay was the main guy there, and maybe that was a problem, but I don't know for sure. But yeah, management, the 80s, the second half of the 80s, things changed. A lot of times it's not even the fault of the band or management or anybody else, because the music changes and you're no longer cool. I mean, look at Quiet Riot and Twisted Sister. Once you get into the second half of the 80s and you've got Def Leppard and you've got Bon Jovi and you've got White Snake, now Twisted Sister could have put out the best album of their entire career, and and you can have the best manager out there, but it's not really going to matter because radio's going to ignore them because they're not cool anymore, and MTV's not going to play their stuff for the same reason. So I don't think you could fault anybody, but I'd like to look more into that Men at Work thing, because how could that? Because they had a lot of talent. Colin Hay could write some great songs, and then they won Best New Artist at the Grammys. So there's a lot of promise there, and all of a sudden they're gone. But again, I think that's just changing tastes. How about a book on Dexy's Midnight Runners? There you go.
I interviewed the singer.
Did you? Yeah, you did. I remember watching that.
Oh, my condolences. I did that from a hotel room on a work trip.
Yeah.
It went okay. It went as fine as it could go. But that's a really unique one. And this gets me thinking with regard to, knowing your music history. Dexy's Midnight Runners in the States is forever a one-hit wonder. Didn't they have a lot of hits in Europe?
I believe they did.
I remember they covered a Springsteen song. They covered like Thunder Road, and there was controversy around it because he changed a lyric or two, and then they tried to deny the license. But meaning that's an artist that always made headlines for years. How many of the British bands that we talk about as being 1 or 2 or 3 hit bands here overseas were career artists, like Madness, for example?
Madness is a great example. Slade is another one.
Status Quo would be another one.
Status Quo is another great example. Led off Live Aid, the UK shows, they were huge over there. But here they never had a big single. Now with who is the band you just mentioned? Not Status Quo. Before that, what was one you mentioned?
Well, OMD was on my mind. I didn't say OMD.
OMD, yeah.
Who did I say?
No, you said. Oh my God, we're getting old.
Not Quiet Riot.
No, it was a band that.
Dexy's Midnight Runners.
No, and then there was
Status Quo.
Slade. I'm sorry, Slade. And the only reason Slade had Run Away was a hit. I believe it was. Was it because they were at Monsters of Rock with Van Halen, and so they decided to put out that album, Keep Your Hands Off My Power Supply? There was some reason why they decided to release that in the US, there was like some kind of a momentum thing there. Do you remember?
Well, was Madness the band I was talking about?
Oh, Madness, yeah. Well,
Madness.
that's another one. But Slade, I was thinking how it was just I can't remember. It was a timing thing that they said, hey, we got to capitalize. Let's put the album out, and they had Run Away as a hit. But yeah, like Status Quo, the two guys were in We Are the World.
Yeah, exactly. So it makes you wonder.
Or Band-Aid, Do They Know It's Christmas? That's what they were in.
It makes you wonder how many bands are just misclassified as one or two hit bands. When you look at the fact that Madness is pretty much still an arena band in most countries, UB40 is still an arena or stadium band in most of the world. And here we just think of them for their covers of Red, Red Wine and Can't Help Falling in Love with You in the States.
Yeah.
So sometimes one of the issues I'm finding is everything is skewed towards the American narrative, and the book is written from the American narrative and not elsewhere. Like, you remember that documentary about the Dandy Warhols and Brian Jonestown Massacre called Dig?
Yep.
And the singer of Dandy Warhols is doing an interview in Greece, and he goes, like the heavy airplay bands like Green Day and U2 and the Red Hot Chili Peppers, and they go, all your songs are on the radio here. And he goes, really? I'm wondering if that is just a constant over time, and that also influences which bands are getting biographies.
Sure. Yeah. I'll tell you, I mean, I would love to see a book written on a tragic figure. Would it be Jani Lane? To me, I thought he was a great songwriter.
Not from Long Island.
Not from Long Island. A book about what, a lot of those 80s bands, whether you like them or not, or respect them or not, they were huge in the 80s. I think that those make for interesting stories, especially as you get into the turn of the decade and when Nirvana hits. Those are the stories that are really interesting, like the Kiss Music from the Elder period. It's the lowest point of a band that is the most fascinating, because it's like, how did they survive? How did they stay together? What changes did they make? What was going on internally? Because can you imagine what was going through the minds of these artists? Like Kip Winger's talked about it. You interviewed Kip Winger. Did he tell you about he couldn't get a gig? Like he was playing like an acoustic show every now and then in front of like 10 people at a library or something. I mean, it got that bad, I don't know
about that, but definitely they did lose their record deal at their peak and all that.
Right. So. I mean, because a lot of those guys just said, I'm out. I'm just going to figure out a way to make money, but I'm not going to waste the time because nobody cares about us anymore. That to me is an interesting story. And how did they, and then, Def Leppard's another great story. Def Leppard's a band who was never going to break up, even though some suggested maybe they should, because it would create more hype if you do a reunion tour.
Let me give you two more questions, and then we'll go out on a high note. How does that sound?
Right. That sounds good to me.
Okay, bring it full circle here.
Let's do it.
Booked on Rock. So the latest few episodes, Prince, The Cars, U2, Yes, etc. Are we allowed to know who's on deck for future episodes?
Sure. Yeah. Let me pull up the calendar here, Jaron. Let's see what we got. Yeah, we got a book on Pink Floyd that I should have out this weekend, I hope. We got a book, speaking of Steve Roth, Selena Fragassi is going to be coming back on. She has a book. Let's see, her book.
She has one about Pearl Jam and one about Alanis, which came out pretty quickly.
Pearl Jam one we're doing. We did the Alanis. We did the Alanis already. So we got her coming on. Let's see. Who else do we have coming up? We've got Greg Prado coming back on. He's got, with Motor Books, he's got a book on 90s alternative rock. So those are on the way. Let's see. Oh, Jillian Garr is another one. She wrote a book on, let's see, hers is on Tom Petty and the Heartbreakers. Mm-hmm. And looking forward to having, and I have the book here, but it looks like they've delayed the release. Alan Niven, the manager of Guns N' Roses and Great White, the book was to be out this month, and they sent me the copy. I have it here. They sent me the copy a while ago, and looks like it may not be until the early 2026. But here's the Pink Floyd one, Mike Evans. I'll have him on Saturday, so we're going to talk about Pink Floyd Behind the Music. So we got that one coming up. And there's always something good, and people need to go back and listen to the interview with Darren Paltritz. I don't remember which number one episode it is, but
too darn kind. And my last question for you, because we've just been talking about the books, the podcast, how you do the podcast, etc. What's the last concert that you went to by choice?
Okay, by choice. Was it Sammy? Oh no, I'm sorry. I just went to see this summer. I saw Blues Travelers, Spin Doctors, and Gin Blossoms, and it was a great show here in Connecticut. Fantastic show. I love the
amphitheater show.
Yeah. I was at the Oakdale Theater in Wallingford, Connecticut. So I think that seats about 5,000 maybe. I don't know, but it was a great show. I love Blues Traveler, Spin Doctors, and Gin Blossoms. I'm a fan of. So that was a great show. Before that was Sammy. I saw the Sammy Hagar tour last summer for the Van Halen Van Halen tribute, I guess you could call it.
Sure.
Yeah, I know I hit a few more in between there. I can't recall when though. How about you?
And there's Johnny Bean saying hello. Hey. We love what he does as a podcaster and a streamer. Johnny, thank you for fighting the good fight. When you say the last concert that I went to, unfortunately, I made the grown-up mistake of going to 3 in a row, like Friday, Saturday, Sunday. 2 of them were Super Drag, who were doing kind of like we're doing these 2 shows, you got to travel to us. And then the Sunday night was B-52s and Devo at Jones Beach.
How was that?
How was that meaning? And thank you again, Johnny. How was the B-52s and Devo, you're saying, or how was Super Drag?
How was B-52s, that show?
B-52s, in my humble opinion, at the risk of offending people, they call themselves the world's greatest party band or whatever. They set the bar too high. They don't move. They don't dance. Really? So you have an amazing rhythm section going on. Not much coming. And also they lied to us with the farewell tour stuff. So shame on you, B-52s. Devo, on the other hand, was one of the coolest things I think I've seen in a long, long, long time. You ever seen them live?
Never. Now, Devo, there's got to be a book on them, I'm assuming.
That's a good question. There's a documentary, I think, on Netflix of Devo.
Because that would be one. Kraftwerk is another you should get a book on.
Yeah, so I think ultimately what I'm hearing, Eric, is you might be getting into the book writing business in the very, very near future.
We'll see. We shall see.
And Johnny, I'm glad that you got to see Devo at South by Southwest, and that is over 15 years ago. So that is sad. But I say sad because, when I think about 2009, I go, a couple of years ago. No, that was over 15.
Well, I'll tell you, Johnny will appreciate this. I'd love to see a book solely focused on the Van Halen Sammy years.
Fingers crossed that happens. But what we have learned today, Eric, is Booked on Rock isn't going anywhere. Many, many more episodes in the works. You're still passionate enough to read multiple books a week. You still have the capability of writing for Van Halen News Desk when time permits. But hey, you're a good son and a good friend, and you're doing all that on that end. So if people want to follow you and what you do even more, what are the best ways to do it? Is it bookedonrock.com?
Yeah, it's probably the best way to do it because when you go there, then you can see you got the links to all the social media pages, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. What else do we have? Blue Sky. I'm on Blue Sky. So you can go there and you can also find all the places that you can listen, but it's on Spotify and YouTube. There's a video versions and audio versions. So YouTube has both of those. Yeah, so that's the best place to go. I do have a blog on there. Did I just put up something on the new Rush announcement of the 2026 tour? Mm-hmm. So that's the best place to go, bookedonrock.com. I really appreciate, everybody who has been listening. The the audience continues to grow and the numbers continue to go up, which I appreciate. It, as you know, it's a slow build, so appreciate and all the great guests who've been on, including Darren.
Well, thanks to all who watched and listened, and please do yourself a favor in life and follow Eric Senich. And to all others that we haven't thanked, all the people who aren't from Long Island, you can get better if you try. In the meantime,
you can still move there.
A great evening to all. And thank you as well to Johnny Bean for his comments like this. To all, speak soon.
Outro.